5 years ago, my fiancé's childhood sweetheart was diagnosed with terminal illness. He resolutely cancelled our wedding and took her traveling around the world to fulfill her last wishes. Now, Ivy Lynn had made a miraculous recovery, and he had come back. He brought Ivy Lynn home and saw that I was still in the Lou residence. Assuming I had been waiting for him all along, he mercifully declared that I could stay. Ivy just beat her illness, she's still emotionally fragile. I'll allow you to stay here and take care of her. I was quiet for a moment, then replied softly. I'm already married. I don't need your permission to stay here. He looked disdainful. Stop joking. Everyone knows you're hopelessly devoted to me. Later, when he saw my marriage certificate, his face turned ashen. You were supposed to be my wife. Morning sunlight flooded the courtyard. I was watering the rose bushes. Suddenly I heard a familiar yet strange voice behind me. True Stella, I never imagined you'd still be at the Lou residence. My breath caught. I froze mid-watering and slowly turned around. Lou Elias was standing not far away, holding Lou Ivy's hand. 5 years had passed. The look he gave me held surprise, along with an indescribable sense of triumph. So you've been waiting for me to come back this whole time. I set down the watering can and wiped the water from my hands. Lou Elias tightened his arm around Ivy, his eyes full of show. Ivy's better at last. We traveled the world for 5 years and fulfilled all her wishes. He gazed at Ivy tenderly before shifting his eyes to me. She's the only one I've ever wanted in my life. I lifted my head and looked straight at him, my voice steady. Congratulations to you both. But I'm already married. Lou Elias froze for a second, then burst out laughing. Stop pretending, True Stella. Everyone knows how head over heels you are for me. Staying in this empty house for 5 years, you were just waiting for me to come back to you. His tone was arrogant, as if he owned the place. Ivy just fought for her life. She's still weak and emotionally fragile. I'll allow you to keep living here. You can take care of her. Consider it compensation for staying in my house for 5 years for free. This is me, Lou Elias, being generous. I shook my head and met his gaze calmly. I don't need your approval to stay here. A flicker of anger crossed his face, then he returned to a look of certainty. Don't forget we never finished our wedding, and we never registered our marriage. You've been hanging around the Lou residence for 5 years. Honestly, you mean nothing here. You're just an outsider. In the sunlight, his features were still handsome, but to me they were unbearably harsh. 5 years was long enough to see someone's true colors completely. 5 years ago, I had stood in a luxurious banquet hall in my wedding dress, happily waiting for my groom. But Lou Elias suddenly strode onto the stage and grabbed the microphone. Sorry, everyone. Today's wedding is cancelled. Ivy has been diagnosed with a terminal illness, and I must accompany her for whatever time she has left. All the guests' eyes turned to me. Sympathy, pity, shock, and amusement, they pierced me like countless needles. In that moment, my world collapsed. The memory was cut short by Ivy Lynn's soft voice. She lowered her eyelids at just the right moment, her shoulders trembling slightly. Her voice was gentle, but every word cut deep. Elias, let's just leave. Miss True has lived here all these years. It would be too much of an intrusion for us to come back suddenly. She swayed slightly, leaning weakly against Lou Elias. Only I knew the calculation and triumph hidden behind her lowered lashes. Lou Elias immediately wrapped an arm around her waist as if protecting a treasure. His face was filled with tension and distress. Ivy, don't say that. Your health comes first. I'll never let you suffer again. We're home. Go rest. After soothing Ivy, he turned around. His warmth vanished, replaced by fury. You've lived in my house for 5 years. The food, the clothes, everything was not all from the Lou family. And Ivy was out there suffering, fighting for her life. He snapped at me. True Stella, have you no conscience at all? I took a deep breath, suppressing the turmoil inside me, and tried to explain. Lou Elias, you need to understand enough. He cut me off roughly. I allowed you to stay to take care of Ivy and make up for these 5 years. Since you're so ungrateful, get out of the Lou residence right now. Immediately. Lou Elias, you have no right to make me leave. I lifted my head, my voice firm. Just then, Uncle Lee, the housekeeper, heard the commotion and came out. Ah, the young master is back. He then turned to me respectfully. Madam, sir called just now. He'll be half an hour early and is already on his way. At those words, my tense body finally relaxed. Good. Once Lou Theodore arrived, there would be no need to waste words on this pair of hypocrites. Lou Elias acted as if he hadn't heard us and ordered Uncle Lee condescendingly. Uncle Lee, tidy up the master bedroom on the first floor. Ivy's weak. Climbing stairs would be too much for her. Uncle Lee looked hesitant. Young master, that room has been turned into the young master's playroom. It's full of his toys and books. I'm afraid it's not suitable for guests. Lou Elias frowned in confusion. Young master? When did I get a nephew? Uncle Lee's eyes were filled with affection. The young master is 4.5 years old. He's bright and clever, loves drawing and storytelling. You'll surely like him. Lou Elias laughed as if he just realized something. I get it. Mom and Dad must have felt lonely while I was gone, so they adopted a child to keep them company. I watched him talking to himself and sighed inwardly. 5 years later, he still lived in his own world, never caring about others' feelings or lives. Young master, you're mistaken. Uncle Lee quickly explained. The young master is the eldest young master's biological son. He's of the Lou bloodline. Lou Elias burst out laughing, utterly incredulous. My older brother got married and had a kid. I thought he was going to focus on his career until 40. The world must be turning upside down. I'd love to see which woman managed to tame my cold older brother. Uncle Lee hesitated and looked at me, asking for guidance. I nodded slightly, signaling him to speak plainly. Uncle Lee took a deep breath. Young master, Miss Chu is your sister-in-law. She and the eldest young master have been married for over 4 years. The smile on Lou Elias's face froze instantly. On that pouring rainy night 5 years ago, after all the guests had left and I stood alone in the empty banquet hall, it was Lou Theodore who handed me a clean handkerchief. His voice low and gentle, I'll take you home. From then on, Lou Theodore began appearing in my life frequently. He never brought up Lou Elias on his own. He simply stayed quietly by my side, helping me through my darkest days. He would bring warm late-night snacks when I worked overtime, carefully remember the blooming seasons of all my favorite flowers, and give me my long-awaited design studio on my birthday. Love had arrived quietly, without a sound. Soon after, we held a simple, warm wedding. No grand fanfare, only our closest family and friends to witness our happiness. Lou Elias stood stiff, his Adam's apple bobbing painfully. After a long while, he found his voice and let out a sharp, disbelieving laugh. This is a joke. My brother could never marry you. He's always been so picky. How could he ever settle for someone ordinary like you? Uncle Lee, have you been bribed by her? She must have used my absence to get close to my brother and climb her way up. Uncle Lee wiped the sweat from his forehead. Young master, Miss Chu really is your sister-in-law. She and the eldest young master are deeply in love, and their little boy is almost old enough for kindergarten. Lou Elias scoffed as if hearing the most absurd story ever. He pointed a finger at me. You. My sister-in-law. He turned to Uncle Lee, his voice threatening. Uncle Lee, are you senile or has she put a spell on you? 5 years away, and she's learned how to manipulate people, even you. I found it almost funny watching him insist he was being deceived. Who was Lou Theodore? CEO of the Lou Group, a universally recognized business genius. He had led the company into the international market before 30, founded his own tech brand, and won award after award. In the entire Liu family, aside from my father-in-law, who dared to go against his decisions. And he never relied on family resources. He earned everyone's respect through his own ability. Did he really let me climb my way up? It was utterly ridiculous. Early in our marriage, I thought Theodore had only married me out of sympathy and duty. I'd even secretly packed my bags, planning to ask for a divorce once the storm passed. But that day, just as I dragged my suitcase to the door, he stood there holding a large bouquet of sunflowers, his tone holding a trace of quiet grievance. Why are you leaving? I didn't marry you out of pity. I married you because I really do love you. In that moment, I saw the sincerity and gentleness in his eyes like a beam of light, chasing away all my unease. From then on, I never doubted our marriage again. These 5 years, I had found real love, a precious little son named Bei, and a career I adored. My life was fuller and happier than ever before. I shook my head, keeping my tone as calm as possible. Lou Elias, 5 years have passed. Everything has changed. You're imagining things. Ivy Lynn crossed her arms, her eyes contemptuous. Sister, you're so scheming. Replacing all the servants, bribing the old butler. You're really that desperate? Before she could finish, I splashed the water in my cup directly into her face. Say that again. Lou Elias flew into a rage. True Stella, I was going to give you $2 million as compensation and ask you to leave the Lou residence sensibly. Clearly, I was too kind. You've already taken everything you could. For 5 years you've occupied the position of young Madame Lou, living in luxury, while Ivy endured illness and torture from you here. Now, I order you to kneel at once and apologize to Ivy. Uncle Lee turned pale with fright and quickly stepped forward to stop him. You mustn't, young master. Miss Chu is your sister-in-law, an elder. How could you make her kneel? If Sir finds out, I stood up slowly and walked forward, my face expressionless. A flash of triumph flickered in Ivy Lynn's eyes. She could barely hold back a smile and even took a step forward, putting on a generous look, ready to accept my apology. I stopped in front of her, and her smile grew even brighter. But I simply walked past her, knelt down, and opened my arms to welcome Bei, who came running wildly down the garden path. Mommy! Bei was covered in dirt, holding a fluttering butterfly in his hand. He threw himself into my arms joyfully. Mommy, look. I caught a butterfly. Bei carefully opened his palm. A beautiful blue butterfly was fluttering its wings inside. I gently stroked his little head. Well done, you caught such a pretty butterfly. But the little butterfly needs to go home to its mommy too. Let's set it free. Okay. Bei nodded sensibly. He watched the butterfly fly away before lifting his small face again. Lou Elias stared dumbfounded at the scene, his face shifting from shock to utter disbelief. He fixed his gaze on Bei's face, his voice trembling. True Stella, you. Where did this child come from? You promised you'd only have children with me. I bent down and picked up Bei, feeling only exhaustion and amusement. 5 years later, he still lived in his own fantasy, thinking the whole world revolved around him. Ivy Lynn's eyes flickered. Her voice was soft but clearly sarcastic. Elias, don't be angry. But look at this child. His eyebrows and eyes really look like yours when you were little. Could Miss Chu have found someone outside to pretend? Before she could finish, Bei frowned and clung tightly to my neck. Mommy, this aunt talks weird. Is she a bad guy? The innocent words hit right where it hurt. Ivy Lynn's face instantly darkened. I held back a smile and patted Bei's back gently. Don't talk nonsense. They're guests. Bei wriggled out of my arms and stood stubbornly in front of me, hands on his hips. Don't you bully my mommy. I'll protect her. Lou Elias's face turned livid with rage. Shut up, you little bastard. Who told you to speak? The words little bastard pierced my heart like poison needles. I clenched my fists, holding back the urge to slap him. I knelt down and said softly to Baby, go wash your hands with Grandpa Lee. Okay. Daddy will be back soon. Uncle Lee understood and took Bay's hand. Young master, let's go wash up and surprise Daddy. Just then, the sound of a car engine came from outside the yard. I breathed a sigh of relief. The cavalry had finally arrived. Mr. and Mrs. Lou hurried into the yard. When Mrs. Lou saw Elias, her eyes immediately reddened. She rushed forward and hugged her son tightly. Mr. Lou, however, turned terrifyingly gloomy the moment he saw Ivy Lynn. Who allowed you to bring this woman back? Mrs. Lou quickly tugged at her husband's sleeve and whispered, don't say that. Do you want him to run away from home again? Lou Elias tightened his arm around Ivy's waist and stood tall. Dad, Mom, I'm going to marry Ivy. No one can stop me this time. I couldn't be bothered to listen to his grand declarations. My gaze passed over them and toward the gate. The familiar black sedan drove smoothly in and stopped not far away. The door opened, and that tall, steady figure stepped out. The moment I saw Lou Theodore, my heart finally settled. Theodore walked calmly into the yard, his eyes sweeping lightly over Elias as if he were just a stranger. He walked straight to me, took my hand gently, and asked, Where's Bay? Only then did Elias realize he'd been completely ignored by Theodore. He straightened up and spoke provocatively. Brother, perfect timing. I'm officially informing you, I'm going to marry Ivy. As for true Stella, he glanced at me with a patronizing tone. Since she waited for me for 5 years, she can stay at the Lou residence as a servant. I'm being merciful. He paused, pointed toward the direction Bay had left, and added, but that kid Bay has to go. The only children I, Lou Elias, will have are with Ivy. Theodore finally looked him in the eye. His gaze was calm but carried invisible pressure. He stepped forward, shielding me slightly behind him, and spoke in a low, clear voice that reached everyone. He is my son. Why should he leave? At those words, Elias stumbled back a step, eyes wide with disbelief. This child is yours and… Yes. He's mine and Stella's. Theodore pulled out our marriage certificate from his chest. Look carefully. Inside was our wedding photo. Elias's face drained of color instantly. But she was supposed to be my wife. Elias mumbled to himself. Show some respect. She is now my wife, Lou Theodore's lawful wife. Theodore said coldly. Just then, Bay ran over. Theodore ignored Elias's reaction, put the certificate away, knelt down, and lifted Bay into his arms. What did you paint today, little artist? I painted the sea and little fish. Bay wrapped his arms around Theodore's neck excitedly and said in a milky voice, Daddy, I want to see your new design sketches. The warm father-son interaction turned Elias even paler. It can't be. This can't be happening, Mr. and Mrs. Lou were about to speak. Lou Elias suddenly strode forward. True Stella, how could you forget about us so quickly? Did our love mean nothing to you? His voice cracked with pleading. 5 years ago, you swore you only loved me. Theodore let out a cold laugh. Did you? Just like you swore to take care of her forever on your wedding day, then turned around and left with another woman? What right do you have to talk about love? You don't even know what it is. Elias's face turned livid. He was about to retort when Mr. Lou's voice cut in. That's enough, Elias. Mr. Lou fixed his younger son with a stern glare. When you abandoned Stella, did you ever think about how she felt? These 5 years, Theodore was the one who stayed with her through her hardest days. What right do you have to come back and accuse anyone now? But Dad, no buts. Mr. Lou raised his voice. Theodore and Stella's marriage has my and your mother's blessing. You will respect that. Mrs. Lou stepped forward and patted Elias on the shoulder gently. Son, some things are gone once you miss them. It's time to look ahead. Elias stared hollowly at Bay in Theodore's arms. The clear daddy still echoed in his ears. He couldn't accept it. How could the true Stella who once belonged only to him become his brother's wife and have such a big child? Ivy Lynn beside him panicked, sensing the atmosphere turning sharply against her. She suddenly clutched her chest, her face pale. Elias. I don't feel well. Elias was immediately distracted. He hurried to support her. Ivy, what's wrong? We're going to the hospital. He picked her up and rushed toward the door. As he passed me, he paused for a moment, his gaze complicated as it fell on my face, unwilling to give up. True Stella, this isn't over. He whispered, then carried Ivy away from the Lou villa without looking back. 3 days later in the afternoon, I was organizing design drafts in my study when the doorbell rang suddenly. I opened the door to see Lou Elias. He looked thinner after a few days, with bloodshot eyes. Stella, can we talk? I hesitated for a moment, then let him in and led him to the living room. His gaze swept the room and finally settled on the family photo on the wall. His Adam's apple bobbed. In the photo, Bay was in Theodore's arms, and I leaned beside them, smiling relaxed. These 5 years. He began hoarsely. I thought about you every single day. I picked up the warm water beside me, said nothing, and just watched him quietly. I had no choice but to leave you back then. Ivy threatened to kill herself if I didn't go with her. I let out a cold laugh. So you abandoned me in front of all our guests on our wedding day. Elias lowered his head, his voice pleading. But my feelings for you were real. Stella, give me one more chance. Just one. I can give you and the child the best life better than anything my brother can give you. I stood up, walked to the window, and looked at the green plants bathed in afternoon sunlight. Lou Elias, my life right now is perfect. I turned around and met his gaze calmly. You can't give me what I want. You couldn't 5 years ago, and you certainly can't now. Watching his shoulders slump little by little, I continued, I love Lou Theodore. He gave me respect, stability, and a real home. You will never understand any of that. Elias's face turned pale. He was about to speak when the doorbell rang again. I opened the door. Ivy Lynn stood outside. Without waiting for my response, she pushed the door open. Her face darkened instantly when she saw Elias. Great, Lou Elias. I've been looking for you all afternoon. You really are hiding here. Ivy Lynn turned to me, eyes full of hostility. True Stella, you just won't give up, will you? You marry Theodore and still you want to seduce my Elias? I looked at her calmly. Ivy Lynn, watch your words. This is my home, and I have the right to ask you to leave. Leave. She laughed shrilly. Who do you think you are? Lou Theodore only married you out of pity. Who knows how much he despises you? Is that so? A cold voice came from the doorway. Lou Theodore had appeared there at some point, his face dark. He strode in, past me, and before Ivy Lynn could react, a crisp slap landed hard across her face. Ivy Lynn staggered back, covering her cheek, staring at him in disbelief, terror filling her eyes. Get out. Lou Theodore's voice was icy. Ivy Lynn, this is your final warning. If I hear you slander Stella again, you will pay. Ivy Lynn flew into a rage and dragged Lou Elias out the door, shooting me a vicious glare before leaving. That night, I received a text from an unknown number. You think you've won? Just wait. I'll let everyone know your shameful past. The next morning, my phone buzzed non-stop. When I opened it, social media had exploded. A post titled The True Face of a Wealthy Wife, from mistress to social climber, was spreading like wildfire, filled with all kinds of slander against me. It claimed I had been involved with Lou Theodore long ago, that I'd only gotten close to Lou Elias to enter the Lou family, and even implied that Bae was not Lou Theodore's child. My hands trembled violently. These vicious rumors had already affected my work. Several important clients called to suspend their collaborations. Years of hard work seemed about to be destroyed. As soon as Lou Theodore saw this, he contacted his PR team and lawyers to gather evidence for a lawsuit. Don't worry. I've had people trace the source of the post. 3 days later, the tech team confirmed that the post's IP address came from the hotel where Ivy Lynn was staying. The evidence was conclusive. At the same time, the people Lou Theodore had sent to verify Ivy Lynn's medical records made a shocking discovery. After repeatedly checking the records and the latest test results, her attending physician stated in shock. Her physical examination was completely normal. She had never suffered from any illness. Her so-called terminal illness was entirely fake. A scam that had lasted 5 years. Lou Theodore laid all the evidence in front of Lou Elias. Elias immediately drove to the hotel where Ivy Lynn was staying. You lied to me for 5 years? Elias burst into the room, his face livid, grabbing her by the neck. You were never sick, were you? Answer me. Ivy Lynn tried to argue at first, but faced with the irrefutable medical reports, she finally dropped her act. So what if I was? She sneered. If I hadn't pretended to be sick, would you have left True Stella at the wedding and come with me? Elias shook his head in pain. I gave up everything for you, abandoned the person who truly loved me, and it was all just an elaborate lie. Ivy Lynn scoffed. Spare me. You're just the second young master of the Lou family. Do you know why I came back? Because I ran out of money. I needed you, my personal ATM, to keep funding me. Elias stumbled back, the last trace of warmth in his eyes vanishing completely. He roared, Get out! Get out! All of you! That night, Lou Elias sat alone in a corner of a bar, drinking hard liquor one glass after another. All he could see was the regret and absurdity of the past 5 years. In the early morning, Elias drunkenly posted a message on his social media. Stella, I was wrong. Completely and utterly wrong. I shouldn't have let you go. Give me one chance. Come back to me. Attached was a photo of us from college, when we were young and innocent, full of hope for the future. The post quickly caused a sensation. Many media outlets shared screenshots, and soon the topic second young master of Lou family publicly confesses to sister-in-law went viral. I was mortified when I saw it and immediately called Elias to ask him to delete it, but he didn't answer. When Lou Theodore saw the news, his face was expressionless, but the atmosphere around him was terrifyingly cold. For the next few days, he was like a different person, quiet, rarely home. I would fall asleep before he came back and wake up after he left. Only Bae and I were left at the dinner table, the silence heavy. A week later, Elias's newly opened company suddenly received a notice ordering it to suspend operations for alleged commercial infringement. Even if Elias was slow, he immediately knew who was behind it. Like an enraged lion, he stormed straight into the Lou Group headquarters, charging all the way to the top-floor CEO's office. Lou Theodore. You've gone too far. What right do you have to shut down my company? Lou Theodore calmly put down the documents in his hand. It's just business competition. Your company infringed on our patents. I'm just following the rules. Bullshit. Elias slammed the table. You're taking revenge because of my post. The argument between the two brothers grew fiercer, almost turning physical. Fortunately, Mr. Lou arrived just in time to stop the conflict. Enough. Mr. Lou shouted. Have you no shame as members of the Lou family? He turned to Elias. You're 30 years old, not 3. Can't you think before you act? Do you have any idea how much trouble Your post has caused Stella and Theodore. Haven't you embarrassed the Liu family enough? Elias lowered his head and said nothing. That night, when Liu Theodore came home, he had been drinking unusual for him. There was a vulnerability and unease in his eyes I had never seen before. Stella, he said suddenly, his voice low and hoarse. I'm scared of losing you. I froze, not knowing what to say. He went on, when I saw Elias's post, I couldn't stop thinking about your past. I'm afraid that you'll regret choosing me. I held him tightly. You fool, what are you talking about? The person I love is you, always has been, always will be. The past is long gone. The next day, the Liu family held an emergency meeting and finally decided to transfer Elias to the U.S. branch. Publicly, it was described as entrusting him with an important role to expand overseas markets. In reality, it was to get him away from the chaos and prevent further trouble. Surprisingly, Elias did not object this time. Perhaps he realized that staying here would only bring pain to everyone. I thought life would finally calm down. One bright early autumn morning, I was taking Bei to kindergarten when I spotted a familiar figure lurking suspiciously near the gate. The person wore large sunglasses and a hat, trying hard to hide their identity, but the over-the-top disguise only made them more noticeable. It was Ivy Lin. I tensed up immediately, holding Bei's hand tightly while quickly calling the bodyguard Liu Theodore had arranged. Ivy Lin seemed to sense my wariness. She gave a creepy smile and walked slowly toward us. Long time no see, Chu Stella. She took off her sunglasses. Her eyes were bloodshot, her face sallow, and she looked mentally unstable. I shielded Bei behind me. Ivy Lin, stay away from us, or I'll call the police. Call the police. She laughed twistedly. You stole everything that belonged to me, and now you want the police to arrest me. She suddenly reached for Bei. Come here, sweetie. Come with Auntie. I'll take you somewhere nice. Bei was terrified by her ferocious expression and burst into tears, clinging tightly to my leg, hiding behind me. I stood in front of my child and shouted sharply, Are you crazy? Don't touch my child. Madness flashed in Ivy Lin's eyes. Liu Elias abandoned me. Liu Theodore hit me. It's all your fault, Chu Stella. I want you to know what it's like to lose the person you love most. She lunged at us, trying to snatch Bei by force. At that critical moment, a figure rushed forward like lightning, kicked Ivy Lin in the leg, and pinned her violently to the ground. It was the bodyguard Liu Theodore had secretly assigned to protect Bei. Seeing the danger, he acted immediately to stop Ivy Lin's rampage. Bei cried loudly. I held him tight, comforting him non-stop. It's okay, baby. Mommy's here. No one can hurt you. Security guards quickly restrained Ivy Lin. The police arrived soon after and took her away for investigation. As soon as Liu Theodore heard the news, he rushed over, his face pale. He held Bei and me tightly in his arms. I'm sorry. It was my carelessness. The police investigation that followed sent chills down everyone's spine. Ivy Lin had not only planned the abduction but also prepared a series of even more vicious revenge plans and more rumors to spread about me. The police found detailed plans and surveillance photos in her phone, solid evidence. In the end, Ivy Lin was sentenced to prison for attempted kidnapping and defamation. After the case was closed, Elias came to our house on the eve of his departure abroad. He stood at the door, not entering. He looked at me with complicated eyes, no longer stubborn or unwilling, but filled with deep apology and relief. I'm sorry, Stella, he said, his voice low but firm. I apologize for all my selfishness and willfulness. I was a bastard. I hurt you, and I hurt myself. He turned to Liu Theodore, sincere. Brother, thank you for always taking care of Stella. And thank you for forgiving me. I wish you both happiness, always. Before leaving, Elias knelt down and touched Bei's head, a rare softness on his face. Little guy, Take good care of your mommy and daddy. Grow up healthy and happy. Watching his fading back, I felt a relief I had never known before. The dark clouds of the past had finally lifted completely, and life was finally peaceful again. Time flowed like water. Another year passed in the blink of an eye. The storm had passed, and life returned to tranquility. Elias had gone to the United States, and Ivy Lynn had received the punishment she deserved. The dark shadows of the past were swept clean. Bay was now in the senior class of kindergarten, bringing home all kinds of naive, lovely drawings every day. Today is a special day, the 5th anniversary of my marriage to Lou Theodore. 5 years already. I murmured as I looked at the calendar that morning. Theodore wrapped his arms around me from behind, his chin resting on top of my head. Yes, 5 years, MS2. To celebrate, we decided to revisit the coastal town where we had our first date, this time with our little tag-along, Bay. 3 hours later, we stood on the familiar beach. The sea breeze brushed gently against us, and warm sunlight shone down on the three of us. Bay ran excitedly on the sand, picking up seashells and chasing seagulls, his face lit up with innocent joy. At dinner, in the Ocean View restaurant I had reserved, I ordered exactly the same menu as 5 years ago. Do you remember? This is where we had our first date, 5 years ago. I swirled the red wine in my glass and clinked it gently against his. Tenderness shone in Theodore's eyes. Of course I do. You wore a blue dress that day, and the sea wind messed up your hair. I was surprised he remembered every detail. I had no idea you remembered it so clearly. I remember everything about you. He took my hand, his eyes full of affection. We walked along the shore under the moonlight. Bay was playing in the hotel's kids zone, leaving us alone at last. Theodore, thank you for all these years of love and companionship. I stopped and looked earnestly into his eyes. You've given me a complete, happy family. He drew me gently into his arms. I've never told you this, but I liked you back in college. I froze at the shocking confession. What? We didn't even know each other then. Do you remember the campus singing contest in our sophomore year? On the night of the final, you wore a white dress and sang 醒好 slow old days 醒好 quietly. The crowd was loud, but your voice reached straight into my heart. But you were already with Elias. I didn't want to ruin your relationship, so I never said anything. I stared at him in disbelief. So you showed up at the banquet hall on our wedding day. I stared at him in disbelief. So you showed up at the banquet hall on our wedding day. Yes. I only planned to wish you silently. I never imagined what would happen. He paused. But I have to admit, when I saw you heartbroken, part of me was grateful. It gave me a chance to be close to you. The sea breeze blew, cool and damp, but my heart felt burning hot. The hurts and pains of the past seemed to melt away gently in that moment. Back at the hotel, we picked Bay up and watched his peaceful sleeping face. Theodore and I smiled at each other. This was our greatest happiness. At breakfast the next day, Theodore received a message from Bay's teacher. Bay's painting had won first prize in a city-level competition. Looks like our little artist is going to be famous. Theodore patted his son's head proudly. Bay looked down shyly, but confidence sparkled in his eyes. I'm going to open the biggest art gallery in the whole world. In the sunlight, Theodore walked toward me holding Bay's hand. The shadows of the two stretched long behind them. Their smiles were pure and bright, more radiant than the sunshine outside the window. I knew this was my happiness, real, steady happiness, firmly in my hands, after all the storms and twists. 5 years ago, the heroine was abandoned by her fiancé for his childhood sweetheart on their wedding day. Later, she met her true love and built a happy family. When the selfish ex returned arrogantly, and the fake sick schemer finally got her just desserts. The story tells us, do not cling to the wrong person, cherish the present. True love is respect and care, not selfishness. Let go of the past, embrace new life, and you will gain real happiness.